Welcome back to our live stream of interviews with our debaters tonight. I'm joined by a storied lawyer, renowned Harvard academic, and celebrated civil libertarian, Alan Dershowitz. He's joining Michael Hayden to argue in favor of our resolution, be it resolved, state surveillance is a legitimate defense of our freedoms. Professor Dershowitz, a real pleasure to have you here in Toronto.
Thank
you for coming to this debate. Let's start with a question that's probably on the minds of a lot of people. You are celebrated as one of America's best-known civil libertarians, yet you're joining Michael Hayden to argue for some measure of state surveillance. Just explain what led you to this conclusion, this understanding.
Well, I believe that state surveillance, reasonably controlled and constrained, helps promote liberty and helps protect against terrorism. For me, one of the greatest threats to civil liberties would be another 9/11, and I want to do everything reasonable to avoid that. You know, surveillance helped us win the Second World War. We broke the Japanese code. We broke the German code. Would anybody say we shouldn't have done that? I think even my distinguished opponents will acknowledge that some surveillance is necessary. And the question is how to create a system which permits the kind of preventive intelligence necessary to preempt another 9/11 without intruding too deeply on the privacy rights of individuals.
And do you feel that this debate since the Snowden leaks almost a year ago has, I guess, gone too far in terms of people advancing what they feel is privacy under threat? They think legitimately Glenn Greenwald, Alexis Ohanian would really say if they were here right now, you know, privacy is in dire threat in the United States today. Do you agree with that?
Americans, unlike Canadians, tend to overreact to everything and tend to speak in extreme terms, and we have to avoid that. The pendulum swings very widely. About 10 years ago, I wrote a book called Rights from Wrongs, in which I demonstrate that rights come out of the perception of wrongs. We've seen wrongs. There's no question the NSA revelations disclose many wrongs, and rights will grow out of that. The question is, will we create a balance, or will we allow the pendulum to swing too far against security and too much in favor of privacy?
And what do you see the danger if the pendulum swung too far in the favor of privacy? What's being lost in that trade?
Our ability to preempt terrorist attacks and to use our technological advantage against the advantages that terrorists have in their ability to fight without concerns for the law, without concerns for morality. I don't want us to give up our technological advantage. My fear is if we had another 9/11, we could see even greater setbacks in civil liberties and human rights.
Mm-hmm. Part of this debate it seems to really center around what's happening within liberal democracies. I think everyone seems a little less concerned about spying that's going on against non-citizens outside of the country. If you look at the NSA programs in the United States, specifically this idea of bulk collection, the large-scale collection, not necessarily the surveillance of the contents of that collection, but the bulk collection. Glenn Greenwald says that is, again, a paramount threat to security, and in some ways he would say it's also maybe an attack on the First Amendment, that it causes a kind of quietism in America because there's assumption that somebody somewhere maybe is reading something, even if they're not. Do you think, again, that's an exaggeration?
I haven't seen any diminution of First Amendment. I haven't seen it quieting down Glenn Greenwald or any of the legitimate critics of privacy. We have a full ability to be critical of our government. Nobody should be fearful of what we say in public, but we have to make sure that we don't allow too much government surveillance, and we have constraints and controls over what they do. The mass collection is a very serious concern, but it didn't start with modern technology. We used to have mail watches where the government without a warrant could look at the envelopes of every piece of mail that was sent through the postal authorities. We have searches of phone logs. The metadata have always been subject to searches without warrants. Now, of course, with modern technology, there's so much more metadata, you can virtually track someone's movements by looking just at the metadata involving emails. So we have to have new rules that constrain that.
Mm-hmm. But abolition of the practice, you would think, is going too far.
Absolutely. I don't think we should be throwing out babies with bathwater. I don't think we should be losing our technological advantage because there have been abuses. This is a work in progress. And we have to make sure that what we come to in the end is a balance between privacy and security.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Edward Snowden. We were just speaking moments ago with Alexis Ohanian. He said Edward Snowden is a great American hero, should be welcomed back into the United States with a ticker tape parade and given the full advantages that he had before his remarkable leaks.
That's a great idea. He should be welcomed back with a ticker tape parade, then he should be arrested and put on trial. And he should defend himself the way Martin Luther King did in front of a court. He should claim that he was a civil disobedient. He should put to a jury the benefits that have been incurred from his exposure. The government should put to the jury the disadvantages, and a jury should decide. That's the way we do it in America. The very fact that he disclosed that we're overhearing Chancellor Merkel's conversations show that he doesn't, and the people who disclosed it don't care about the Fourth Amendment or American constitutional rights. Angela Merkel does not have any Fourth Amendment rights. We're entitled to overhear her conversations because she's trying to overhear ours. And that's something for diplomacy, not for rights. It was overdone. Snowden stole material that was and exposed material that we do perfectly properly. He also disclosed great abuses, and for that we ought to be thankful. But when you engage in civil disobedience, you take the consequences. You don't run away to another country.
And if you were sitting on that hypothetical jury, how would you decide?
I'd have to hear the evidence first, and I might very well decide to acquit. But I would hold him in greater respect if he were willing to subject himself to the American legal system and not claim the benefits of civil disobedience without taking the consequences of civil disobedience.
And how do you feel the fact that he has sought and received shelter now in Russia, which at this very moment, due to a declining situation in the Ukraine and other geopolitical hotspots, is increasingly in opposition to the United States?
And probably will be increasing its opposition not only to the United States but to all Western democracies and countries that care deeply about the rule of law. Look, I don't blame him for seeking asylum wherever he can get it. He was also trying to seek asylum in some South American countries. What he ought to do is what Martin Luther King and what Gandhi did, and that is face the consequences of his civil disobedience and pay the price that he ought to pay for breaking the law and try to justify what he did, and let's see whether or not he gets the ticker tape parade or he gets put in jail. That's what you do when you're a civil disobedient. You don't run away.
Where do you think this debate is headed? Right now, your own president has telegraphed a series of reforms. He'd like to see, I guess, the ability for bulk collection, but the data housed with the telecom providers not held by security agencies. Maybe some additional congressional oversight thrown into this. Do you think that's enough to allay a reasonable person's concerns about these programs as they stand now?
Nobody knows. The reason is because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what else is out there. We don't know what else the NSA and the CIA and other organizations whose existence we may not even know about are doing. And it's hard to have a fulsome debate in the absence of knowledge. And so we need more disclosure, more revelation, and then we need to have a full debate, and we need to decide how to strike the appropriate balance. One thing we have to do is change dramatically the nature of the FISA court, the court that hands out warrants as if they're Christmas presents. We need to have a real court with advocates on both sides, assessing every single warrant and balancing the need for security versus the need for privacy. We don't have that now.
I guess there's a tension there, though. Yes, more disclosure, but that very disclosure then undermines U.S. capabilities and maybe potentially undermines American security.
That's exactly right.
So how do we have this debate if we have an incomplete data set, incomplete information, but it may be a self-interest in not having total information, because total information would undermine these our own safety, security, our own international advantage in terms of spying capabilities.
That's what makes the debate so much more difficult than usual. But we can learn more than we now know. For example, Snowden could have revealed the program without revealing some of the content of the program. That would have been a partial act of civil disobedience, or could have revealed the content of improperly obtained material against U.S. citizens without revealing the fact or the content of properly revealed information against foreigners or foreign leaders. We need more nuance. We need more balancing, even in deciding how to conduct the debate. You can't always conduct a debate with the fullest amount of knowledge that you need, but you can certainly have more than we now have.
Well, that's what we hope we're going to have after the end of tonight's debate, more knowledge on an important question. So Alan Dershowitz, thank you so much for coming to Toronto to be part of this conversation.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Viewers, you can watch Alan Dershowitz's debate tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on theintercept.com and www.monkdebates.com. In just a moment, General Michael Hayden, the former head of the NSA, the former head of the CIA, will be up. He's the last in our live pre-debate interview, so stay tuned for that just moments away. Thank you for your attention.